they're all bending and saying, sir, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And nobody can believe it, including law firms that have been so horrible, law firms that nobody would believe. And they're just saying, where do I sign? Where do I sign? Nobody can believe it. And there's more coming.
Even Donald Trump was shocked by how easily and quickly and enthusiastically the top law firms in the country capitulated one after the other after he targeted them with the threat of crippling sanctions, even after they were viewed as likely illegal. But today, a months-long investigation by the New York Times exposes the fear and turmoil inside Paul Weiss as it became the first of 9 law firms to agree to do free legal work, tens of millions of dollars worth, for Trump-backed causes. The New York Times reveals that Paul Weiss, once the leader of the legal resistance against Donald Trump during his first term, even paid associates to work for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, helping to build a criminal prosecution against Trump. But according to this new reporting, quote, once Trump won re-election, the firm scrambled to avoid his ire. It stopped representing a drone manufacturer that was suing the Pentagon. It also started scrubbing its websites of content that might draw the attention of Trump and his aides. Quote, when Trump issued his executive order against Paul Weiss, leaders at the firm were convinced they could beat it in court, but they feared opposing the president would hurt the firm's finances and its clients. And when the firm's then chairman, Brad Karp, presented the framework of the deal at a meeting of the firm's partners on March 20th, no one objected. I want to bring in New York Times investigative reporter Mike Schmidt, whose byline is on that story. Andrew Weissman is still here. Mike, take us through the investigation and the reporting.
Look, we were very interested in trying to understand what happened inside of Paul Weiss. How was it that Paul Weiss, a law firm that prided itself on standing up to the government, a law firm that had been part of the civil rights movement, a law firm that had worked with Thurgood Marshall on the NAACP's case in Brown versus the Board of Education. How is it that that firm, which raised more money for Democrats in 2024 than any other law firm in the country, the same firm that did debate prep for Harris, how is it that that firm was the first one to capitulate to Trump? And why did that happen? And what we found when we went back is that the firm essentially made a decision almost 2 decades ago under Brad Karp to essentially chase corporate business. And in the attempt to do that, they hired a big-time rainmaker named Scott Barchet, who came in 2016 and slowly, over several years, was able to change the direction of the firm and sort of orient it away from its historic roots and towards this modern Kirklandification, as it's called in the legal world, which basically means turning law firms into businesses that can be the biggest profit generators as possible. And that the thing that struck us the most about Paul Weiss and the deal that it made was that it came in March of 2023. And that is an incredibly important time in the Trump presidency because Trump has come out of the gate. He clearly is operating in a more sophisticated way than he did in his first term. There is a head of steam. His retribution campaign is ramping up. And one of the first firms he goes for is this firm that had done all this stuff to stand up to the government and had been the leaders of the legal resistance against Trump in his first term. And what happens? That firm goes and makes a deal at a moment where Trump is becoming increasingly emboldened in his retribution. And after Paul Weiss makes that deal, 8 other law firms follow suit, and they make similar deals with the administration. 4 other law firms fought it in court and actually won injunctions. But in all, 9 firms pledging $1 billion in free legal fees, made these deals with the administration.
This person that ran this firm, the story ends with the tale about how his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein actually cost him the job to this more corporate person. But this person, Brad Karp, who turns the firm away from its history, I think the 3 liberal Supreme Court justices, their pictures are in the story, they clerked at this firm. Does he have any remorse about doing something that Judge Beryl Howell, you write in the story, said was so illegal it chilled her to the bone? These executive orders, capitulating in service of an executive order that is illegal?
I think that CARP has rationalized it to other people that they basically had a fiduciary duty to themselves and their clients to make this deal because it was economically, the firm would have fallen apart. It would have gone out of business if they hadn't done that. That's what they have claimed. They have claimed that they were going to lose their clients, they were going to lose lawyers at their firm, that they were going to go and work somewhere else. For the firms who fought, that really hasn't been the case. They have largely, the firms that have fought have not only won in court, but are still standing on their feet. Now, are they making as much money as they were before? I don't know. Law firms are not the most transparent places on the face of the earth. But I think that the four firms fighting and winning the injunctions in court showed that there was a path to fighting. And the reason that CARP rationalized making the deal is that he said that even though they knew the executive order was illegal, and even though they knew a judge would rule in their favor, they could not survive as persona non grata in this administration, in which the administration wouldn't deal with them. How could they represent their clients? And to me, that's always been one of the most remarkable parts about this story, which is that Paul Weiss knew the executive order was illegal. They knew a judge would come to their aid. But the power of Trump over them and the fear of the economic damage he could do to them was so great that they still went ahead and made the deal anyway. And that's a law firm.